Awesome. Hey, we are live, everybody. Jared James back. We've taken about a week break here from Happy Hour with Jared James, mainly because I'm not a raging alcoholic and my liver needed a break from doing happy hours every single day. But I'm really excited today to have Glenn Sanford. Am I correct in saying CEO and founder of eXp Realty, right? I mean, those are all
accurate. Yeah, so I'm Jason Gessing, CEO of eXp Realty.
Okay.
I'm CEO of the parent company, eXp World Holdings, and obviously founder of eXp Realty, and now Chief Strategy Officer over at Virbela. I don't know if you noticed that, but
I didn't know that. But let's talk about that today because I do want to know a little bit about that. Before we do, this is a happy hour show, so I am right now having actually right off the cart here. I'm having a cloud-sourced hazy, juicy IPA from Two Roads. My buddy is the guy that approves all the beers or doesn't approve the beers at the brewery. And he literally just dropped off a new shipment to me that for the first time are getting brought to stores. Like they weren't even in there yet and whatever. So he dropped me some new ones to try. That is what I'm having tonight. What are you having tonight?
So I will let you know, I will tell you that for the last month, actually since March 14th, I haven't had any alcohol whatsoever, and I'm breaking it for your event. I'm having a little
look at this
little vino here.
I don't know if I should be honored or feel bad.
Yeah, I wasn't doing it because I was on the wagon. I was just doing it because I didn't have anybody to drink with.
Well, there you go. Now you do. You know what, everybody? Let's do a cheers here. Cheers, Mr.
Cheers.
There you go. And like we say whenever we do this, guys, if you're watching right now, this is happy hour. So do me a favor, take a picture of whatever your beverage there is. Put it in the comments so we can see it there. Let's get the chatter going. If you know an eXp agent, tag them below. Let's share this now. I already know, guys, this is going to be a really good conversation. I didn't say that to you yet, Glenn, but I know this is going to be a really good conversation because I know you
must have something like up your sleeves or something.
Oh, big time. No, but you guys are uniquely positioned. Like there's no way that this isn't a good conversation. Like with everything going on right now, it's just going to be interesting to hear from you. So if you're watching this right now, hit that share button. Let's get this out there to as many people as we can. Hit like, leave a comment. Let us know where you're coming in from. Usually during these, there's quite some chatter in the comments. So make sure that everybody's talking back and forth, and let's have a good time with this as we do this. But right off the bat, man, like usually I've been starting these off and I've been talking about, so what's it like working from home? But
yeah,
it doesn't really seem to apply.
That's kind of like normal here.
Yeah. So can you just really quickly, for those in my community that don't fully know, exactly how you guys are different, and I'm going to tell backstory and all that in a second, but like explain to the audience what makes you guys different, as far as the company overall?
Yeah. So, in 2009, I was running real estate brokerages. Prior to that, I 2007 became an indie broker and got to about 4 offices, and 2008 hit. And I literally couldn't afford to keep offices open, and sort of just said, hey, how do we build a real estate brokerage that's not dependent on bricks and mortar? So we launched with 25 agents or so back then. And
what year was that?
That was 2009.
So you and I talked way back when at an NAR, you and Brad Anderson. That must have been right after that.
Yeah, it was not too long afterwards. I think I was ran into you and Dan quite often.
Yep.
You guys were like this, probably still are.
It still is. That's my man. Yeah.
There you go. But we launched. We did this crazy thing. We decided to actually run our real estate brokerage using a virtual world for business. So we actually showed up as avatars back in 2009.
You showed it to me. I remember that. Like it was like literally people were in a thing meeting and they were avatars and they had like it was so at that point ahead of its time. Yeah,
well, it was. We loved it because it gave us the ability to expand. Obviously, we've expanded to all over the U.S. and now Canada, UK, Australia.
I was going to ask you about that if you've gone outside. I'll go into that a little bit more in a little bit, but I wanted to know if you guys have done that.
Yeah, and it makes it really easy too because we don't have to. We put in whatever the minimal amount of bricks and mortar that's required to actually operate in a given area. So some states require you have an office with a door. So we have an office with a door. It's
Is it literally like a closet with a door?
Yeah. So I actually tried to get one, which was a closet with a door. It was a Regis office in Lake Oswego in Oregon, and you literally had to pick the chair up off the floor and put it on the desk to actually close the door. The room
Could you just go to somebody's, like, could you just sublease like a closet out of somebody's place as long as you have a lease?
You probably could. That was exactly what we were trying to do. And this particular Regis office in Oregon, I remember literally they had a waiting list which was like 2 years long to get all of those offices with a door, not from real estate brokers, but there are lots of companies that were required from a regulation standpoint to literally have an office that somebody could actually knock on and that could be locked up with the files.
Wow. So so I remember those days. I remember when you came to me and you showed me this thing, and I was just like, oh my God, like this is like crazy. Like this is legit. There's like people in there meeting and doing the whole thing. It was so kind of cool. But now you flash forward to today. What really kind of separates you guys? Are you guys doing the thing where like people can bring people in and they get credit? Are you doing, a certain thing on splits? Like what is the thing that you say, I know you guys are all virtual. Is there anything else that you think kind of is making you different or making you attractive to agents and brokers?
Yeah, I mean, because we have much lower cost to operate than your traditional real estate brokerage. We're able to provide a little bit better split model than's traditionally out there. It's still the traditional splits,
right?
70-30 is still pretty typical, plus a franchise fee.
Mm-hmm.
So we're 80-20, and then we cap that at $16,000. So that's kind of that's all an agent will pay us. There's some.
When you say franchise fee, do you mean franchise fee to the broker, franchise fee to the agent, franchise fee overall? What do you mean?
Yeah. So when I was at Prudential, which of course is now Berkshire Hathaway.
No, Berkshire Hathaway.
When I was at Keller, you as an agent, you had an extra 6 or 7% that came out of every deal that went to the franchisor, and so that came off the top.
Yeah.
And so we're one company. We're not a franchise. So ours is a clean 80-20. So there's no franchise fee on top of the 80-20. So that makes it more palatable for a lot of agents. There's less expensive brokerages out there, really good ones too. I mean, you've got the Home Smarts and the Realty One groups, and
right. There's a million, man. And like, just so you know, and I've been saying this on every single show, like I'm talking to everybody right now, like across the board. Like we had the CEO of Remax, the CEO of Coldwell Banker, the CEO of Howard Hanna, the CEO of Century 21, the CEO of like all of these different places. Because for me right now, we want to learn more from my community, learn more about the companies in the industry. But even more important right now, when you look at what's going on in the industry and what's going on just really across the globe, it's about the industry right now. Like a lot of these people, a lot of these agents and brokers want to hear from the people who are essentially running the business, running the industry, want to hear directly from them. And my idea with doing this was basically, let's let them hear from you guys the way we would usually talk. Because right. I think sometimes people look at me or look at you or look at whatever, and they kind of look at it as kind of like untouchable and whatever. And the truth is, when I look at my relationships in this industry, I show up at events sometimes in a hoodie, go to happy hour, we're just talking, like we're just, whatever it is. And I wanted people to kind of hear that, So for you, I mean, you've got this thing where you're going virtual and you're looking at the splits and saying, hey, we can do it this way because we're not having all this overhead. Do you guys have a physical place for headquarters?
Nope, we literally have no headquarters.
So when this all went down and everybody was like, oh my God, we're gonna have to work from home, you were just kind of like, and?
Yeah, it's not really fair to say that that's what the reaction was, but that, for us, literally nobody went to work any differently when the shelter at home orders went out, when all of these things that happened, that even when the places where real estate's not an essential service and you can't go to the office or what have you, obviously agents weren't able to go and show properties, but they were able to virtually close the properties in a lot of states. They're able to sort of work, and they're all connected to the brokerage, so there was nothing for them that they had to overcome. They didn't have to figure out new ways to turn in their deals or to do any of the business, because we were already set up we were set up like this from day one. Like there was no tooling that had to be switched out for us.
No, you guys, I mean, this is what you've been doing all along, essentially, is now you're out of, before I get into my next couple of questions here, because I forgot about this, you're actually out of Washington State.
Correct.
Which is where I basically grew up. Where are you in Washington State?
So do you know where Blaine, Washington is?
Of course.
Yeah. So I'm literally on the Canadian border, like in a, in a town that's, I think, on a good day is 10,000 people.
Yeah, I'm from a town there that even people from there don't even know. I was from a little town called Stanwood.
Oh yeah.
Uh, do you really know that? You're for real? You're not just saying
Yeah,
that?
yeah. Well, so my little brother was a wrestler at Blaine High School, and Blaine and Stanwood are in the same.
Because I usually, even with people from Washington, they've never heard of it. Like, I usually have to be like, look, we're in Camano Island, we're an hour outside of Tacoma, Seattle, whatever, but nobody knows Stanwood. It's just
I don't
like
know that I've
little,
driven through Stanwood.
yeah. I lived right near a place called Lake Ketchum, which was weird because I did an event last year for John L. Scott. And I took a rental car and I drove down to where I kind of grew up. And it's funny, your ideas of, your childhood, like where you grew up and everything, and then compared to when you go there now. And it was like, I remember having this massive yard, like just, it was almost like we were raising cattle,
Right.
and then I go there and I'm like, I don't think I'd let my kids in this neighborhood. Like it was, things were a little different than I remembered them
Right.
at that moment. So are your people from your quote unquote headquarters, because you don't have a headquarters, but like staff for corporate and stuff? Are most of you in the same area? You guys spread out all over the US? Are you spread out over other countries? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, so pretty much spread out over the U.S. I mean, obviously we've got folks in the U.K., Canada, Australia as well, because we're operating there. But for the most part, we've got most of our agents. We've 28,000 of them, close to, is just in the U.S. alone. But our chief.
So you're up to 28,000 agents in the U.S.
Correct.
And that's, I mean, if you look at that compared to
I think
5 years ago.
that includes Canada, but yeah.
But I mean, if you look at that compared to 5 years ago.
Yeah, 5 years ago would have been what, 2016?
Yeah.
So
2015, yeah, 20, yeah, around there.
Yeah, 2015, 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Yeah, so 2015, we finished the year at 864 agents.
This is my point, man. Like, you guys kind of went from like, this, hey, we've got this idea, we've got whatever, to, all of a sudden, it was like you were a player now. I mean, let's put it this way. All of a sudden, when I said, hey, let's talk to the CEOs of the major brands, I'm like, I got to reach out to Glenn. You know what I mean? Like that was, you guys have kind of, I've been watching the trajectory there of what's been going on. And it's honestly, it's pretty impressive. So then I didn't hear the full thing there. So are all of them here, or as far as headquarters, or are they kind of?
So our CFO's in New York. Jason Gessing, who's the CEO of Realty, he's in Boston. Our president of brokerage operations, she's in the East Valley of Phoenix. Dave Knords in Philadelphia, and then we've got 600 staff that's literally located in we probably got staff in almost every state of the country.
And you literally have no overhead for office space for them.
Correct. Yeah, we have just what's required.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. What was like a $600 a month rental or something, or whatever. Like, so then how often do you guys meet, and what do those meetings look like? Are you using that virtual platform that you showed me years ago? Are you guys doing something else? Like, what does it look like?
Yeah, we actually bought a company 2018 called Verbella. They're actually and that's where I kind of made a bit of a transition to leadership wise. But it's a virtual world that has offices and training centers and all the trappings of a physical office,
right,
but virtually. And so we started using that literally from day one in 2009. We used a different platform called Teleplace back in the day. And then that transitioned to, they went out of business, and then we went with an open source platform that it turned into, and then they couldn't scale. And then we went to another platform, and then it sort of went out of business.
Open source meaning like you could bring it right into your package and offer it through your existing software, or
open source meaning that you could download it for free and install it and start using it, sort of almost like you'd install WordPress or Apache,
right,
web servers.
Right.
So we used an open source platform for a while, and then we started using a platform in 2016 or 2017 called Verbella, and then we became their largest single customer. Over 50% of their revenues was coming directly from us. And we said, hey, let's pull you in because we think it's the enabling technology for us to actually do what we do. And so we bought them so we could invest in them and help them scale.
Was that the one you mentioned in the beginning that you said you're now? So did they basically, you became so much a part of the revenue that, is that almost like when you own half the stock and you're like, we're going to take over? Did you go after and try to like acquire them, or what was the situation with that?
Yeah, no, we acquired them. Yeah, we bought bought the company, but we brought over the entire team with it. I mean, we didn't people didn't exit the company. There were some shareholders that were there that were sort of from the previous iteration of the company, but outside of that, we had a passionate. We have a passionate group of people who believe in these virtualizing technologies for universities and businesses, and they're just kicking butt and taking names right now.
How do you evaluate a company when you're half the revenue? Do you use that as like leverage? Because it's like, when you take a company and you take, we're going to do 4 times revenue, we're going to do, whatever multiple you're going to use. When you're half the revenue, is that part of your, you don't have to tell me what you put, but I mean, like, is that part of your conversation where you're kind of like, hey, if we're not here, we're going to do it off of this multiple? Do you take that into account?
Well, you could, it's like anything else. The market is where a buyer and seller agree on price, and they had a pretty cool platform. There was nobody else like them in the marketplace.
Right.
So it's not like we could actually pivot to somewhere else.
Right.
So, from a negotiation,
you couldn't find another open source or something because it wasn't going to offer what you were already doing.
Right. And so since we couldn't really pivot, they knew we couldn't pivot. Not that we were negotiating hard. We did a really friendly deal. I feel like we were negotiating among friends. So they got a great deal. We were able to leverage a platform in a way put more money into it to help them scale faster. And so it really worked out to be a nice deal. But in terms of evaluating it, if we were evaluating based on sort of revenue multiples, we couldn't have got to the price that we got to. But what we had to do was value it based on what it was offsetting in terms of our expenses as a brokerage and what it was enabling us to do. So,
and what uniquely was different about the software? I mean, you couldn't get it anywhere else. Like that was.
Yeah, you couldn't get this anywhere else. Still really can't. There's not really an analog for their platform at the scale that they've got to. But when we think about enterprise value, I mentioned it last year when I was talking to, who Peter Diamandis is?
That does sound familiar. Who is that?
So he's an eXp, Singularity University, Abundance 360. So he does a lot of events.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
So he asked me point blank in front of his audience what I thought it meant from an enterprise perspective. And I feel it created at least a couple $100 million in enterprise value just because we're able to operate on a totally different structure than anybody else does. So from an enterprise value perspective, it enabled us to do was, a whole bunch of enterprise value by using the platform. And so that went into sort of the calculations for us saying, hey, if we were to put in, we're in 400 plus multiple listing services around the country. And if you just do the math on that, 4,000 or 400 times let's say the average rent's 3,000 a month.
Right.
So 400 times 3,000. I don't know. Anyway, the numbers get pretty big.
1.2 million.
Yeah. And then you add the staff that goes along with all 400 offices and everything else. So you can quickly get to just that being 10, 20, 30 million a year just to support that infrastructure.
I'm always curious about this because I'm kind of super into this stuff. I'm kind of when it comes to that kind of stuff, business stuff, valuations, that kind of stuff. I'm a bit of a geek. Like I love that stuff.
Right.
Would you consider yourself kind of like a business head, like likes that kind of stuff, or is that a necessary evil of your job?
I've built way too many spreadsheets in the day over the years. I really geek out on building up business models and
that's why I was asking. I was kind of getting that sense.
Yeah. So when we built eXp initially, I built an entire spreadsheet that went out multiple years into the future, and I knew exactly what my headcounts would be at every single metric of agent count and the whole 9 yards. So
how close were you?
So It actually wasn't too bad. I figured my first place was to get to 300 agents. Once we got to 300 agents, we felt that we had proven enough of the model that we thought that it would be able to be sustainable.
Did you know, like at that point, like, you know, there's a profit level on each agent, or were you getting those agents in bulk trying to take over brokerages, or was it about 300 individual agents? Like, what was because I remember we were building our coaching program and I was like, we can get to 50 students, like 50,
right.
you know? And I'm like, I could make a living and I wouldn't have, you know, like, it's like, it's crazy. Like you're like 50 students, you know what I mean? Like was the 300 about taking over a brokerage you knew it would be profitable, or was it about you have an individual profit per agent? Like
it was based on an individual profit per agent was really the way that we looked at the model back then. There were some costs we didn't anticipate. When you're growing at the rate that we're growing, we have to overinvest in people on the front end because they've got to be there before the agents get here. And so
did you have investors on board, or was this self-funded, or did you finance, or did you what was your plan as far as if you had to overinvest in the beginning? Like what was your plan for growth?
So well, we were
growth by revenue, growth by investment. Like I know there's a bunch of different ways to do it, you know?
Yeah, we were bootstrap funded for the most part. In 2008, between October and December, we ended up taking on about $150,000 worth of investment from friends and family.
Oh, wow.
Some of our agents that were with us took on a small loan for $75,000. So that was part of the 150, and that's what got us into 2009. While we were making the pivot. So we raised a little bit of money so we could pivot. And then after that, we pretty much ran everything from cash flow. We didn't take.
And it was just, so basically at that point, so in the beginning, I would think the reason why, number one, a lot of these people would invest with you when you say family, friends, whatever, is that you are that analytical guy. You're able to show them, hey, here's what needs to happen for us to make money. That's very doable. That's very whatever. But then once you got to a certain point, you were just kind of thinking to yourself, like, okay, now we'll grow, because the other way to grow is to grow by revenue, right?
Right.
Which, by the way, I'm a huge fan of. I have a marketing company, software company, like the whole thing, separate thing, that we completely self-finance, self-funded, like grow by revenue, the whole thing. It's not as sexy today as to go out and get a series 2 or go out and get but like it's extreme. Like for me, it's like old school mixed with, the risk that it takes to be an entrepreneur. So I love hearing that. So then you're looking at it and at that point, what's the staff like? Is it just you? Is there other people? Like, where are you at that point?
Yeah. So at 300, we had probably around 10, 15 staff.
Okay. And that's like senior staff, or that's like admins, that's people handling, paperwork and what's
so that was pretty much everybody. I mean, we had obviously some managing brokers. When we first started, we literally, the managing brokers were getting paid on a per file basis, because in 2009, the market just had been hammered.
So to eliminate your risk, you're basically telling them like, look, based on the number of transactions going to happen, you're going to make good money, but it also takes away your risk from having to have a huge overhead, which is really what you guys were all about with no office space and everything else, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So we went on a per transaction closing to the managing brokers, and we had some hourly staff and some low salary staff, but the managing brokers, who generally are the more expensive part of the brokerage, they were paid on whether we were doing transactions or not, because we really fundamentally didn't know whether the market was going to suck for a while or if it was going to get better. So we wanted to expand to multiple states. We had lots of people approach us, said, hey, we want to help you go to this state or that state or this state or that state. And we said, well, here's the program. If you want to help us grow, then here's what we pay on the broker side. And which it was interesting, because I could have seen a lot of people did say that didn't make sense to them, but we had enough of them that said, I'm in.
I was going to say, did you have any trouble finding quality people at that point? Or were you just kind of like, look, everybody's not for us. Let's find the person, or let's find the people that believe in what we're doing here, and ultimately they'll make out long-term. But was it difficult finding people that would kind of believe in that model when maybe somebody in their same marketplace was going to give them a salary, and the market was so unsure?
Yeah, so it was, we had to, we stuck to our guns. We didn't really deviate from that model, but it did mean that we missed out on some folks that would have been really quality brokers
It
back
means
when
you
we
did
first
miss
started.
out?
We missed out on some good quality brokers, because they were, they were looking for, the 6-figure plus salary
But you
and
couldn't over leverage your payroll. Like you couldn't put yourself in a position where, potentially it makes you go under. You can't
right.
laugh, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we'd figured out what the numbers needed to be from an agent perspective or from a broker perspective. And I think at the beginning we were paying, I don't remember exactly, but I think we were paying like $250 a transaction to the managing broker.
Right.
So, so if they weren't doing at least, 15, 20 sales a month in their particular market, then, they were hurting. But of course, similar to a lot of brokers, they were out selling too when they were doing that
Yeah.
few transactions.
Interesting. That's so cool. Okay, so you go from there. You don't have to go into details, but I mean, at this point, are you a lot of sleepless nights? I mean, are you up all? Are you like? I mean, I'm trying to figure out. Like, I find that a lot of the people I talk to, the CEOs, especially ones like you that are kind of entrepreneurial, when you're doing this kind of stuff, sleep is like it's great when it happens, but I mean, you're just working, getting it. Were you putting in like just crazy hours at this point?
I was, yeah, it was. Because we were working with, we had a core team and we were in the virtual office every morning, figuring out what we needed to do that day, and then we'd all run off and do whatever we needed to do from putting systems and processes and all the different parts of the business in place. But I was, fairly sleepless nights for a while. Probably went on for multiple years. I mean, it wasn't like months.
Yeah. I get it, but it's a labor of love, right? I mean,
Right.
it's like this is tough to explain to people. It's just, it sounds terrible. It's like a woman giving birth, right? Like nobody would sign up for this terrible pain and whatever. But in the end, it is your baby. Like
Right.
it's that kind of a thing.
Well, it's exciting. There's a book I just recently read, Loon Shots, Loon Shots. Have you read it yet or seen it?
I have not, no.
But it talks about the return on equity, and a lot of times organizations start to stagnate in terms of the team wanting to get things done, because organizations, when they get large, they start to go toward what's called return on politics.
Yeah.
Which they tend to be bureaucratic organizations. But return on equity organizations are the ones where, if you put the effort in, there's a big upside, there's a big return for it. And I think that's one of the things that entrepreneurs love, is they love pouring into something because they know that there's some sort of upside. It might be freedom, it might be financial, it might be change the world, it might be change, it might be some sort of social good, but there's something that ultimately they want to be proud of at the end of the journey, and that gets them motivated. And so I'm working with we'll hopefully chat a little bit more on the Bravella side, but I joined that team when I got back from Australia on March 14th, which was kind of crazy coming back from Australia when everything's getting shut down.
Yeah.
So I've been now not going to restaurants because those are shut down, and obviously no shopping. So I've just been working out of the house like everybody else, but I've been waking up at 2 a.m. and making notes, and then sometimes I'll take a little nap, and then I'll start work at 7 or 8 in the morning, and then I'll go till 5 or 6 or 7 at night. Yeah. And then I'll crash at like 9:30 or 10, and then I'm going, okay, I'm gonna get a good night's sleep tonight. I swear I'm gonna sleep till 6 in the morning, and I wake up at 1:30 and I can't go back to sleep again, and then I'm working my butt off, and then I'm like, well, it gets to 5 in the morning, I'm going, well, it doesn't make sense to take a nap now. I may as well just stay up.
Dude, I know this schedule, man. Sometimes before this whole like lockdown, like sometimes I would legit wake up. It's like, and my wife will hear me like getting dressed at 3:15 in the morning, and I'm just going to the office, and she stopped questioning. She stopped saying don't. She's just like, just try not to wake up the kids. Like,
okay, there you go.
Sometimes you get up and you just start, like your head starts going and you start like, it's just, what are you going to do? It's just, some people are like that. You know what I mean?
I did find though, just recently, because I got back in this mode where I really was putting in 12, 13-hour days here the last month or so. and I finally got back into my running schedule here a little bit,
Oh, yeah.
and now I'm sleeping again. So if you're not getting at least some exercise
Wearing
in,
yourself out.
you gotta burn some energy out there. And of course, right now, what I saw the meme the other day, which was 80% of people who have gym memberships don't even know their gym is closed.
It's so true. I had a thing, this is so bad, especially from a guy who's supposed to motivate. When I go into my gym in January and it's packed, look,
Yeah.
if you're going to be here in 2 months, have at it. Go ahead, whatever. If you're not, would you get off my pull-up bar? Like, would you just, like, now I got to wait for you. You're not going to be here in 10 days. Would you just move it along? And,
Right.
and that's such a non-motivational thing to say, but it's true. I want to talk about real quick. You talked about incentive and you talked about return on equity, right? Were you talking about specific to your staff, or are you talking about the agents?
I think both. In the early
Meaning,
stage,
does your company work that way? Meaning, like, does your company think in those terms? Do agents have an advantage to bringing other agents on? Do they have an advantage to growing? Do they have an advantage, or is it just basically create your own sales? You'll keep more of your money. Like, how does that
yeah,
work with you guys?
yeah. So yeah, for us, we kind of went all in with. I refer to it as what would have taken for me to want to work for eXp, knowing all the things that are out there. As an agent, what would I look for? Well, I'd look for a competitive split. So that's kind of like table stakes, right? You got to have a competitive split. I want a company that's technology, got a little bit of technology behind them, and they've got some way to engage consumers.
They understand it's 2020.
Yeah. But the other piece that I was at Keller. I love Keller Williams. I still think it's an amazing company. But I was there because I saw the profit share program. So they put a 7-level profit share program. I fell in love with it. I went hard on it for about 3 years, and then eventually figured out that for me it wasn't working the way I wanted it to. So that's why I broke out, went independent, and then when we launched eXp, I really like that profit share system in Keller.
Right.
Why don't we put in a revenue share system? So we actually put in like a revenue share system that's very akin to Keller's profit share system. And then the other piece was I always wanted to be a shareholder, meaningful shareholder in the parent company. So we actually became a public company. We distribute equity to our agents and brokers. And one of the reasons why, and I know that, you being in the industry the way you are, you probably get hit on all the time by eXp agents. I mean, it's probably, if you don't get at least one phone call a week, I would be surprised.
Because of how you guys do your thing.
Yeah, and the reason is because we actually built in a return on equity model for our agents. Our agents are actually incented to actually grow the brokerage from an entrepreneurial perspective that they don't get anywhere else.
I wasn't going to mention it, but all the time. And I'm like, guys, that's career suicide for me. Like, that's not like, I can't, whatever. Like, it just can't happen, but yes, kudos to them. I'm like, look, good, do what you do. I mean, I'm proud of you, like, be reaching out, keep following up, but I'm like, look, it's just not going to happen. But yes, you are correct. So I want to get into, on that note, I want to talk about, because you guys went public. But before we do that, I just got a reminder from my office. I have to mention to everybody, midway through on these, we basically let everybody, we do a contest. We give away a free ticket to our event every year. So guys, you guys listening right now, every year we do an event. This year it's the 2020 Jared James Advance. Every year we do our Jared James Advance. We've got students, followers from all over the world that come in, 2-day conference. It's absolutely awesome, guys. And I can really say that now because we've learned from our mistakes and really put on a great conference now. So we're going to give away a chance right now for you to win a free ticket. In October, we're going to be in Nashville, and you guys are going to be jonesing to get out to Nashville by October because you can't even leave your houses right now, okay? So if you want a chance to win a free ticket to the 2020 Jared James Advance, all you need to do right now, take a picture of your screen or take a picture of you with the screen behind you, put it on Instagram or Facebook. You have to tag me at Jared James Today. That's at Jared James Today. Somebody from my team put that in the comments and use the hashtag Happy Hour with Jared James, okay? So take a picture of the screen or, you with the screen behind you. Tag me on Instagram or on here at Jared James Today. and use the hashtag happy hour with Jared James. And in the next 24 hours, guys, we're going to pick a winner for a free ticket to the 2020 Jared James Advance. So get on that, guys. And by the way, while I'm on that little break there too, if you're enjoying this right now, like I said in the beginning, tag an eXp agent or another agent. Just this is about the industry. So tag somebody from the industry below, leave a comment, let Glenn know that you're really enjoying this, and hit that share button, so you can get this out to more people, because it's not very often that you get to have these kinds of conversations with people who are really kind of running the industry. So Glenn, I wanted to know, you and I had an interesting exchange like a few months ago where we were talking about different stock prices of different, companies and, whatever. Obviously you guys are a little bit uniquely positioned right now, because with everybody going virtual, they're trying to figure out how to make that work when you were already virtual. So that was already there. Tell me about the process to going public. Like, because you guys are a publicly traded stock now. Did you know what to do? Had you done that before? Did you have to go hire an attorney and like a lot of people do? Like, what was that process like? Was it more than you thought? Less than, like, was it crazy? Was it cool? Was it easy? Tell us about that process of going public with your company.
Yeah, so we did it in a very non-traditional way. So we didn't need to raise money. So most people, when they go public, they do an IPO, bunch of insiders sell off their stock to institutions and family offices that want to be part of that whole going public process. Maybe you've got some sponsor that calls other clients in their book to buy stock in the IPO. But we actually instead bought a public company. So we actually went out and found a public company. We bought it and actually merged ourselves into it.
Wow, that's quite creative.
Yeah. So I had fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on how you look at it, but when I was 21, I became a stockbroker. And do you ever see the movie Boiler Room?
Of course. Would I be an entrepreneurial man if I've never seen Boiler Room?
There you go. Well, the unfortunate reality is that, in his story, he went from dealing a card game in his house to becoming a stockbroker. Well, I went from managing a bar to becoming a stockbroker. Wow. And the managing the bar, unfortunately, was the more legitimate business. And so
you didn't go to work for the Wolf of Wall Street at any time? That wasn't.
And I've run into some colorful characters over the years. Let me just tell you that. But during that period of time, I spent about 6 months before I sort of burnt out at that particular firm. But I ended up staying in sort of financial services. And
burnt out? Why? Like, you mean you're just hitting the phones like crazy? Meaning like what? Like, why are you burning out?
Well, because we were smiling and dialing some really crappy companies. And when I say crappy companies, I'm 21. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I mean, I did, but I didn't. I was like, my manager said, pitch Jude Pharmaceutical. That was actually the name of the company, and they had really nice brochures, and I was smiling and dialing. And
are you like not hanging up the phone? You're just leaving it here? And was it one of these? Like one of those?
I think it was a touch tone, and but I mean, it was I didn't know what I didn't know at that point in time.
Didn't they call that in sales KISS?
What's that? What they call it?
In sales, they called that KISS. Keep it simple, stupid.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, it was a crazy time. It was in Las Vegas. So I was a Las Vegas stockbroker. So you'd sort of put those two together. And but anyway, I spun out of that. But then my dad and I worked with a number of small companies to actually reverse merge into small public companies back in the late 80s, early 90s. So 89, 90, 91.
Wow. And
so we helped about 10 companies become public exactly the same way that eXp became public. So so in 2012, I could finally see the reason why it would make sense for us to be public. And so the single reason why we became public is because I wanted to share equity with our agents and brokers. And the unfortunate part is you can't do that in a private company. You typically have a maximum number of unaccredited shareholders that you can have in a private company. And so what a lot of companies
then you've got to find a public company that's acquirable.
Right.
From somebody who's not a public company.
Yeah, so we found a company that had actually did all the work to become a public company. They had done their initial share distribution and everything else in 2008. They had done this just before the housing market crash. It was actually a company that was actually set up for building homes in uh, Southern California, Arizona for
That's what I
Canadians.
was going to ask you. Was this a real estate company? Was it another company and then you just kind of flipped it around? Like,
It was actually in the real estate business, but not related to real estate brokerage.
was it a requirement in order for you to not like hit this loophole, but kind of like, whatever, it had to be a real estate company or no?
No, no, it just happened to be a real estate company.
You could literally buy any public company. And then as long as you merge in, like, whether you're a real estate company or not, it's just a branch of your company. Like you could just be public.
You can. Yeah, I don't recommend it because there's a lot of things that can go wrong. I'd fortunately seen a lot of the stuff that could go wrong before, so we were able to avoid a lot of the landmines. But we were able to do that. We did the merge and then we.
But you avoided all of like the legal IPO, like all of that. Like I remember going through. I was kind of an endorser for .loop early on, right? Like my job was basically to get them visibility, to get them to the people they needed to talk to promote them, to do all that kind of stuff. And I was kind of like a hired endorser to like go and do that, right? And then I was I was there when that was all going down, when they were going through it all with first they were going to be doing it as .loop, and they were going through the whole IPO process and everything else, and they're eventually obviously acquired by Zillow.
Right.
But at first, all of those other proceedings were going on, and it was crazy, like how much was involved in that. Like
it can be. We kind of grew our way into it, so that was one of the things that was nice about doing it the way we did it, because the regulatory scrutiny to be like we're a fully listed company on NASDAQ, so we're listed in the same marketplace on NASDAQ as Apple and Netflix and a lot of other large enterprises. The regulatory scrutiny to be there is really heavy compared to where we started. We started on the over-the-counter market, so we started on the over-the-counter bulletin board. And so on the over-the-counter, you can literally run with one officer and director. And if you don't want to, you don't even have to file your financials. Now you typically don't trade as well because people want to see your financials. So we actually did audit our financials every quarter and did annuals and did all that. But we grew into all the various pieces that we needed to grow into to eventually become a fully NASDAQ listed company.
How do you get the name change? Because I think you guys are what, eXp?
Yeah. So
on the NASDAQ. So like, how do you buy this company? It's a completely separate company, merge in so that now you're technically a publicly traded company, but now the overall plan is it needs to be eXp. What is the process? Is it a difficult process to get that changed, to get that symbol changed?
No, that's actually one of the easier parts. Like that's fairly easy. You have to file a name change with I think Delaware was where we needed to file the name change.
And do you just kind of like go to reserve a symbol like you would a domain or something?
Kind of, yeah. You request request a symbol, and if the symbol's available, then you get it, and if it's not, you don't. So and we were fortunate to be able to get eXp because that's a good one for us.
That's right. That's what I mean. When you that's why I was so surprised when you just said that we avoided all the IPO stuff, whatever. We just merged into another company, because I'm going, your symbol is eXp. So how is that? That's super interesting to me, man. Like that, for me, that's worth it. Beyond everything else, I love that stuff. Like I was like the 9-year-old kid that was reading books on this kind of stuff. So like I love that stuff. So tell me a little bit about, before I get into kind of the whole current situation right now. Is it called Verbella?
Verbella.
Because this was new to me, because I wasn't aware. You said that, I forget what you said your role was there, but you kind of brought that up at the beginning and said that that's another one of your roles, and that was completely new to me. Like, what is that, and how did that come about?
Yeah, so I'm Chief Strategy Officer now at Verbella.
Okay.
And so check it out. It's up at verbella.com. But
Verbella, and how do you spell that?
VIRBELA.com.
Are they out of Australia?
No, they were out of San Diego.
Oh.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. I'm going to check that out. So how did that come about, and what is that?
So it's a virtual world for business platform. So it's actually it's a virtual world for business education, leadership, and assessment. So that's where the BELA comes in. And but they started at UCSD. A gentleman named Alex Howland, who's the president and founder of Verbella. He, as part of his master's thesis, was doing how to do distance leadership development. And so he theorized that using a virtual world for work would actually make that a reality. So he ended up getting about $1.5 million from the Rady School of Business to actually do this, to test this hypothesis out, and then started to add folks to it. Stanford uses it, Davenport University, UCSD. So a lot of universities use it. U.S. Army War College is using it. So there's some government applications to it. And then there's a whole bunch of private customers that use the platform as well. In 2018, as I mentioned, we were over half their revenue.
I was going to say, this is the company that you purchased.
It is, yeah. So we were, and we bought them in November of 2018. And then we've been putting money into it. We've been helping them staff up. We love the platform. But it wasn't until COVID-19 that the use case didn't become obvious to everybody else.
Like I was about to say, like, you're describing what you're describing. And to me, once this whole thing goes on, this is like, for you, I mean, obviously nobody wants, COVID-19, this whole thing that's happening. But from a business perspective, from the, this is what our product does, this is what our software does, this is, whatever. This had to be, hey guys, now does it make sense?
Right, exactly. And so, we were in the process of bringing on a really, really good sales guy to help on the enterprise sales side of the business. And we were in the process of doing a few things, and then COVID hit. And then I'm trying to figure out where's my highest and best use of my talents as a business leader. And we've got such a great team on the eXp Realty side, and I'm all over virtual networks. Like, I built one of the largest online services in Western Canada back in the mid-90s called Interactive Cafe. And I used to work for AOL for a period of time. So me and
AOL.
online services are kind of like kindred spirits.
God. And so now, do they operate like you guys do? Are they virtual with like their staff, or do they have a headquarters?
Yes. So what's funny is that
or are you trying to push them towards being?
We actually did. Well, COVID pushed them to it. Like, because of COVID, they're in California. Their whole team had to go and disband and go work from home.
So are you using this right now? Like, see, you guys don't need that office.
It's pretty funny. Yeah, I don't think they're going to go back to the physical structure. I don't think they're going to want to. I don't think that once we come out of this and the states start to open up, a lot of people aren't going to want to go to their physical offices anyway, because they still haven't harnessed the virus. The virus isn't going away.
Right.
They're just opening up businesses. So I think they'll probably continue to operate fairly virtually.
God, that's pretty crazy. Tell me real quickly before I get into kind of the COVID thing right now. How many countries are you in now, and how did that process happen? I mean, are you allowed to, because like you mentioned some different countries, but I know that there's also some hoops to jump through when you go into these other, there's hoops to jump through when you operate in a different state.
There is, yeah.
So what's the growth been like? Like, where are you guys, and what have been the pitfalls? What have been the hoops you've had to jump through? Have there been any countries you tried to get into, but you're still just working on it? It just didn't work out. Like what's it looking like right now?
Yeah, so we're in 4 countries. We're in the U.S., in Canada. We're in most of Canada. We opened up the UK and Australia both, I think Q3, late Q3, early Q4 of 2019. So they're really new countries for us. And it's been going good. To open up a new country there's a little bit of work to it. So, but there's not as much work to it as you would expect. I think for us, we still have the luxury of operating in an entirely, and so that allows us to open up in a new country with fairly low expenses.
Right.
Like Purple Bricks, when they came to the U.S., they put $150 million in, open it up, and then they had to sort of tuck their tail between their legs, and then
I mean, they're done now.
Yeah,
You see a lot of those, by the way. You saw, what was it today? Was it Redfin laid off? Not Redfin. What was the company you saw today laid off
Remax did something, I
41%?
think.
What's that?
Did Remax just announce a little bit of a
I don't think Remax announced a layoff. I saw Remax announced a cut in their employee benefit matching, on the retirement and those kinds of
okay,
things.
yeah.
I saw that happened, but then I'm trying to remember if it was I don't want to say the wrong company, but one of the major ones came out obviously and mentioned said today they're laying off like 41% of their staff.
Oh, Open Doors laying off 35% of its staff.
Maybe that's the one I'm thinking of. Open Door mentioned that. There's a bunch of them that it's happening with right now. Obviously, I mean it's kind of going around. I am curious, by the way, like recruiting wise, during this time right now, has this been like a recruiting win for you guys? Are you guys not recruiting right now, or are you kind of like this has been like what's the situation right now?
Yeah, we're kind of growing at a fairly similar rate that we were growing at before. So we're since the beginning of the year, we've added a little over a net 3,000 agents since January 1.
But I'm talking about since this happened. Like since this happened, has this changed your recruiting efforts? Like have you been able to kind of like go into places and say, hey,
yeah,
be virtual?
Yeah, well, we definitely have an inbound of some pretty significant real estate offices and brokerages that are trying to figure it out. I think it's hit them so fast and so hard because, keep in mind that just 4 weeks ago, I don't think there was a single state in the country that was shut down. So,
yeah.
And so in the last 4 weeks, we've had this major shutdown that has taken place across the country. And unless you're in South Dakota, you pretty much had to kind of totally regroup. But we've got a number of people we're talking to that have, significant numbers of agents, and they just recognize that there's no way they can go back to the old way of running their brokerage. And so they're saying, hey, how do we make this conversion? How do we make it happen? But a lot of those conversations have literally started in the last 2-3 weeks. And even though a lot of them will probably make the move, you just can't go from coming up with the idea and doing it 2 or 3 weeks later.
It takes some time. Like, is your main focus brokerages or individual agents?
Probably individual agents is our main focus, but we corporately don't actually do the recruiting of agents or brokerages. So that most of the agent attraction and the recruiting is actually agent to agent.
That's the whole profit sharing. That's the whole like allowing the agents, like they win, like you said. Are they calling you, hitting on you and saying, hey, there's an opportunity here. Like you set up a thing where you have the agents going and doing the recruiting, right?
Right. Yeah. So because they're the ones doing the reach out, they're the ones that are having the conversations with the broker owner. And then when the broker owner expresses interest and says, okay, tell me more, I'm interested, I'm can you put me in touch with somebody, then we get involved and to sort of then give them the nuts and bolts of how to make the conversion. But we're not like knocking on the doors ourselves. We're talking to the people who are reaching out to us through our agents.
So I've got an interesting question for you. Do you think that eXp is for everyone, or do you think some agents do need and love an office?
So if you were to ask me 2 months ago, 3 months ago, I would say that there was definitely a larger percentage of agents that needed a physical office. They fundamentally were conditioned to wanting to have a place that they called their office. They needed that professional setting. They needed the small conference rooms. They needed to be able to sort of do that thing. Like that was part of their DNA.
Right.
It's a smaller percentage. And I would say that it's probably whatever that percentage was, if that was 30% or 50% of the industry, I think that whatever that number was, it's probably half that today. Because as agents have adapted over the last month and a half, 2 months, they figured out that I can still be in relationship with my clients. My clients don't actually need me to have an office in order to do business with me. They recognize that the office might not even be the safest place for them to go as a consumer. So I think that we've got a kind of a shift in mindset. But there certainly is a percentage of agents that will always want to have a place that is their place to meet clients. I think that's not going away. So it's not for everybody.
I get it. Yeah.
But right now we're about 2% of the agents in the U.S. are eXp agents. So you figure we got 28,000. There's about 1.3 million realtors.
Yeah. So here's what I heard from that answer. The eXp is not for everybody, but it's for more people than what they think it is for. Meaning that there's many more people who you think would be happy under your system than are using you right now, that are a part of your organization right now. And you think that this COVID thing kind of opened some eyes to, hey, you can do it this way, right? Like,
right. Well, and broker owners as well. Like we've got broker owners that, before.
I would think that would be the biggest pitfall. Like that would be the biggest, not pitfall, the biggest a hurdle you'd have to jump is, getting a broker to be okay with the idea that you're not going to have a place for them to come to and, congregate with you and, high five and the whole thing. I think that would be, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think that would many times be the biggest hurdle.
It is. I think what we're hearing is, and you've been doing this coaching thing, and so you probably talked to a lot of broker owners, and so you've had a chance to look at the P&Ls of broker owners. And I think it was Rob Hahn did that article where he kind of broke down the financials of broker owners. And at the very beginning of sort of COVID, so this was like about a month or so ago when he put that piece out. And when the market's slow, most brokers were brokerages were generally break even or making just
the brokerage business is not a profitable business. Like I say it all, like I said years ago that I believe you're going to start to see, the places like Realogy and these other places really go and buy teams, not buy brokerages, because brokerages, under the way that, they're still doing their splits and all this kind of stuff like it's 30 years ago, and it's just not profitable, And then you look at some of these team structures that have come along and they're still completely profitable. But the brokerage business is not, it's not a profitable business for most people.
Right. Well, and even the buying of teams, you obviously got Compass threw a bunch of money around. You got some other folks that throwing money around buying teams, but they bought teams.
Throwing money around is a nice way to put it. Like a lot of money.
But now they're stuck with all this physical office overhead, and now they're seeing sort of diminishing return on what that office represented for a team was a place for them to actually run their team.
Yeah.
And now they're I think as teams sort of question the value of an office, and they're figuring out, we've got teams in eXp, some of them had physical offices of their own. They actually leased their own space, and they can't use their offices. And now they're doing team meetings in the cloud, and they're holding their team accountable, and they got their ISAs doing their ISA stuff, and they got their agents doing their agent stuff. And they're figuring out a way to be productive without physical infrastructure.
I mean, look at this whole Zoom thing, right? Like Zoom is becoming a verb like Google, right? Like you tell people just Google it. Now it's like, let's just Zoom. Let's do it, whatever. Like it's forced people to come to terms with today's technology of like, hey, I can be in front of a camera and I look exactly like I do here that I do in person. This is okay, right? How do you see this? Last couple of questions here, because I don't want to keep it too long, but I'm really enjoying this. How do you see this all affecting the marketplace? Meaning like, do you see this whole quarantine and all this kind of stuff? How do you see it affecting how agents do work, or do you see it affecting it at all? I was talking to, yesterday I had on Ryan Serhant, and it didn't work going live, but we put the video up on my Facebook and Instagram and what do you call it? Podcast and all that kind of stuff. But like, I asked him and I said, do you see this changing after, as far as people doing, are they going to start doing more virtual tours and virtual this rather than seeing things in person? His answer was no. He said, Jared, we're all doing virtual tours, whatever, but I don't see 10 apartments selling a day. Basically, we do the virtual tour and then they say, let me know when I can get in. And so it was a very interesting answer, Do you see what we're going through right now in any way changing how agents are going to work, or what consumers are going to expect after this? Like, yes, no, what do you think?
I think it's a yes and a no. And I mean that, so what I mean by that is that I think every agent needs to figure out what their unique selling proposition is for the consumers they're trying to attract.
Right.
And one of the ways, a unique selling proposition includes how are they different from everybody else.
Right.
And because if you go all in, it's like the agent who does the open house 2 times a day, 5 days a week. They're going to get tons of business from open houses because they're mastering it. They become the go-to on open houses. The person who goes all in with 360 tours and virtual walkthroughs and really makes that their calling card is going to get more business, not because the technology itself makes them that much more effective. It's because they become known as the agent that does this as part of their business plan.
Interesting.
So
So it's almost like a niche.
Yeah, it's all about creating a awareness that you do something over and beyond the masses of agents that are out there. So whatever everybody's doing, you need to at least do the baseline, that's the table stakes, but then you got to figure out what's that 1 or 2 different ways that you're going to totally differentiate your product and service mix as an agent versus everybody else. And that's how you get an unfair share of the market.
Almost like are we talking about like a bomb that is like, look, we're video marketing, one-to-one video marketing. And now whenever you want that, people go to bomb, right? And there's not a ton of tools that do it, whatever. So it's not just communication. It's not just email, texting, whatever. It's that specific niche of one-to-one video marketing. We're the tool. You're saying that in the agent space, in the brokerage space, in the real estate space, you've got to find what that niche is, what that thing is you can corner, that kind of, right. That's what you're saying?
It is, yeah. In fact, when I first started my personal real estate practice, my company was Buyer Tours Realty. And I don't know if you knew my history, but in my 4th year in the business, I was in the top 50 nationally with Keller. So that was my 4th year in real estate. So it was pretty crazy. There was 43,000 agents. And yet in years I was able to do that because I specialized on doing virtual tours from the buyer's perspective. And so we literally went and took photographs and videos of homes, 2 to 3 a day was the average requirement for every agent on my team, where they were actually proving homes on consumers' behalf. Now, the crazy part is that very seldom did we ever sell the home that we were doing the virtual tour on for a buyer.
Right.
But we got a buyer.
Like an open house, basically, right? Just like an open house. Very seldom do you sell the house that you're holding open, but all of these potential prospects are coming through. And if you know your marketplace, chances are you're going to get a different buyer or a different.
Right. Exactly. So in terms of the tools and the technologies, I believe that there's always going to be ways to differentiate with 5.5 million homes or 4.5 million homes that sell in the next 12 months. And you've got, 1 million plus realtors. How do you stand out? How does brokerages stand out?
Yeah.
What do you do differently? And if you brand as a brokerage that because of what just took place, we now do 360 walkthroughs of every single one of our listings, and you make that part of your value proposition, you're going to get business.
Do you think that moving forward right now, as a result of everything going on in the marketplace and what's going on in the world and the health crisis and all that kind of stuff, do you think that anything needs to change moving forward with eXp, or do you think you're uniquely positioned already to kind of flex what you already do?
But we're pretty uniquely positioned, but we always look at it very iteratively, meaning that I use the phrase internally that everything that we do in eXp is in beta. Like there is nothing that we shouldn't be considering changing all the time. So, very adaptive as an organization. And I think that's one of our strengths is that we've been able to pivot. We've got an iBuyer platform. We're starting to do our own title escrow. We're starting to do some of our own mortgage stuff. We're starting to do some of the other things. We're doing them all a little bit differently than the next person that's been doing it already. And we're testing it. We're doing it, fixing it, and trying it again. So we're do it, fix it, try it,
So is it always like to be determined, meaning, yes, something might change, but we're not sure yet. We've got to look at what's going on and we try a lot of things and then we come to what we think works right now.
Yeah. And then we scale that. We scale what works. And if it quits working, then, we should quit doing it.
What do you think right now, closing questions here, what do you think right now agents and brokers should be focused on? Should it just be what you mentioned before, which is, finding right now what that unique selling proposition is and going in all that? Should it be, dealing with stop worrying about data, worry about your database? Like what do you think right now? Where do you think people should be focused during this time in their business?
Yeah, so I think right now, and I talked about this internally in eXp, first and foremost, get your freaking CE credits done. Like how many
Take the
agents
time to go and do
literally
that.
wait until their renewal is due to actually do their continuing education for their license renewal? Like, just get it done.
Like, you're home right now, knock it out.
Yeah, just knock it out. I think the other part is I do actually think that it's a good time to go through and clean up your database. I mean, how many of us, and this is for the folks that can't actually do the business right now. If you can do the business right now, maybe that's something you spend a little bit of time on, and you're working on the business side. But most of us can't do the business. So work on making your business more efficient, and of course, like we're doing here, stay in front of your audience in some meaningful way.
Yes.
So however you do that, and last but not least, realtors are the ambassadors for their community.
Thank you.
So the reality is that figure out how you can be of service to your community in whatever way that is. And if you feel healthy enough to get out there and go pick up some groceries or do something for somebody in the neighborhood that needs something done, just put that out there. Even if nobody takes you up on it, at least you're recognized as somebody who's going above and beyond.
I've been teaching real estate agents all over the globe during this time. I've been doing trainings and everything for all the major brands all over the globe about where they should be focused right now. And two of my major points are, number one, come from a place of service, not a place of sales right now. Come from a place of service, and you need to position yourself as a local community leader. And what I mean by that is, what separates real estate sales from so many other sales jobs in an area. Nobody expects the local furniture salesperson to be a community leader. Everyone expects the realtor to be a community leader. Okay.
Right.
So you got to take that serious, right? Last but not least, man, like what do you do on a daily, or where do you go to learn or be inspired, or like, what do you learn from on a daily basis? Are you reading books? Are you reading articles? Are you listening to podcasts? Are you doing where are you going to learn?
Yeah. So I'm a big Audible guy. So I listen to a lot of books on tape. I just started my own podcast. You
started your own podcast? What's your podcast?
It's podcast.workingremote.com. So it's podcast.workingremote.com. And I've just got my first 2 episodes on it. I'm editing my third, so I'll be posting it a little bit later.
I'll check it out.
Today's actually kind of a cool theme. It's creating a shared vision with your team as you go remote. So that's actually the third podcast. So they'll be posted a little bit later today. But I'm basically trying to coach organizations, not just real estate, but organizations at large, on how to embrace a remote first culture.
Nice. I didn't realize that. I'm gonna go check that out. Podcast 3, man. We started ours last year, and then it just kind of takes off, man. It's crazy. It's like podcasts are where it's at right now. Like we can literally put out a YouTube video, or they get thousands of whatever. Podcasts it's sick how many listens and view, whatever they get.
I got 300 listens in the first 2 days.
That's awesome, man. Like, that's absolutely awesome. Like, think about that. That's 300. It's not like here's what's really cool about podcast. It's not like putting up a video. Like, I'm going to take this video, right? And we're going to have it on Facebook. We're going to have it on YouTube. We're going to put the audio on my podcast, whatever, right? But when this is on Facebook, a certain number of views are just because it showed up in somebody's feed according to an algorithm. You know what I mean? And a lot of those views won't even count. They'll count them as views, but they didn't really watch or listen. You know what I mean?
Right.
A podcast, somebody specifically went to the place, put their headphones in, went for a run, listened in the car, and said, let me hear what that person has to say. It's just like stories on social, on Instagram and Facebook and all these places. It's the last place that it has nothing to do with an algorithm. Every single view, every single listen was somebody saying, let me actually hear or see what that person has to say. And that's powerful. In the world of algorithm and everything else, where most of your views, most of your stuff don't even count, they're just putting them on there, but really they didn't watch or listen, or it just showed up on their feed and they had to scroll by it or whatever. That's powerful, man. That's why podcasts, that's why stories are so powerful. So anyway, Super cool, man. How can people connect with you if they want to connect with you?
Well, obviously, Facebook, I'm up to my 5,000 friends. So I would say,
By the way, let me just really quickly here so everybody doesn't get ticked off, because I get this all the time and you probably do too. Would you accept my friend request? Would you do whatever? We don't even see them. Like once you go over the thing, it literally just, you can accept the thing, but it turns someone into a follower. Like you don't even see it anymore. So they can still connect there. It's just going to turn into a follower.
Right, turn into a follower. And then, but I tend to like LinkedIn. LinkedIn for me is is really the business network. So, so even though you're watching on Facebook, connect with me on LinkedIn.
There you go. And so literally just go like put in Glenn Sanford and there's not a ton of other people you're competing with.
There's not a lot of Glenn Sanfords that's connected to the real estate space so if you're in real estate and you type in Glenn Sanford, you'll find me.
Chances are you're the guy showing up.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Guys, as we close here, first off, again, if you want to win that ticket to the 2020 Jared James Advance, take a picture of your screen or a picture with you with the screen in the back. Post it on Instagram and here on Facebook. Use the hashtag use the at Jared James today. You've got to tag me in there and then use the hashtag happy hour with Jared James. We're going to pick a winner within 24 hours. Do me a favor if you enjoyed this, because this was honestly one of the more enjoyable conversations that I've had, just because I geek out on all this stuff as far as going public and the growth of the company. I literally skipped so many things I was going to ask you that are just like running through my head as you're talking. I could talk to you for 4 hours just going over the whole business side of everything. I love that stuff. So if you enjoyed this, do me a favor, guys, as you're watching this right now, hit like, leave a comment, say thank you to Glenn, because, we talk in this way in a very down-to-earth way. This is a guy running, a big organization who took time out of his day to kind of talk to you guys and give you some insight. And so I think that matters. So make sure you say thank you. Hit share if you think this was useful information. Just hit share. Let's let other people do it. Tag people below. Let's let as many people as possible hear what he had to say, because I think it was super valuable. Glenn, any closing remarks or?
No, thanks for doing this. I'm guessing you're not in your living room.
This is my living room. Yes, it's a Bill Gates style home. It's very, no, it's not my living room. I've been working from home every single day. And today I was working from home as well. I literally just came in for this right now. There's nobody here. I'm still quarantined. Nobody's here. There's nobody, whatever. But after that screw up with Ryan Serhant yesterday, where it wouldn't connect to, Facebook Live, I didn't trust, even though I know it wasn't the internet connection, I didn't trust the internet connection in my home. And so I was like, I'm just going to come into the office and do it.
Okay. I just thought I thought that was your Zoom background right there.
No, man, that is, it goes around, it goes back, and then it goes off to the side and whatever. It is, it's anti-you. It's an actual office. It's our offices, man. It's empty. We've got everybody working from home, obviously. But it's, man, we took a Class A space and we kind of Googleized it.
Oh, awesome.
We tore out the ceiling and we put in, a lot of cool spots and, the typical beanbags and ping pong tables and whatever. But it's, I don't mind as long as everybody's working hard. We want a cool environment though that people love to be in. And so we kind of created that for them. So
awesome. Well, hey, thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it. And you and I need to connect a little more. So
awesome. All right, guys, hang on 1 second, man, because I'm going to stop the live here. Guys, thank you, everybody. Make sure you share, leave a comment, and say thank you to Glenn. We love you guys. Thanks so much.